Inside Judge Judy's courtroom, a quiet hearing was about to turn into a public unraveling. The cameras were already rolling when Karen Whitmore stepped through the doors. She was 48 years old, dressed carefully, wearing dark designer sunglasses and holding a white cane so clean it looked almost untouched. Every movement seemed deliberate. She slowed her steps, reached into the air, and tilted her face as though she were struggling to understand the space around her. To the people watching, it looked like the entrance of a woman living with blindness. To Judge Judy, it looked like a performance. Karen had come to court with a serious accusation. She claimed her former employer, Barbara Chen, had fired her after she suddenly became blind. She said Barbara had refused to support her, pushed her out of work, and left her emotionally devastated. For that, Karen wanted $125,000. It was the kind of case that could destroy a small business owner. Barbara Chen sat on the other side of the courtroom, looking tired, tense, and deeply frustrated. She was 52 years old and had spent years building her accounting firm from nothing. It was not a large company. It was her life's work. Every client, every late night, every dollar mattered. When Barbara hired Karen as a bookkeeper, there had been no problem at first. Karen showed up, did her work, and seemed capable. Then, several months later, Karen said she had developed a rare condition that had taken away her sight. Barbara said she believed her. She offered patience. She offered adjustments. She tried to make the workplace easier for Karen. But then things stopped making sense. Employees said they saw Karen driving. Security footage showed her moving through the office normally when she thought nobody was paying attention. She claimed she could not read paperwork. But Barbara saw her using her phone and reading messages without help. When Barbara finally asked questions, Karen did not explain. She threatened to sue. Soon after, the lawsuit arrived. By the time they stood before Judge Judy, Barbara had already spent thousands of dollars defending herself. Her business had suffered. Her reputation had been shaken, and she knew that if Karen's story was believed, her entire future could be damaged by a lie. Judge Judy had read the case before the hearing began, and something about it bothered her immediately. She had been in courtrooms for decades. She had seen desperate people, dishonest people, frightened people, and people who knew exactly how to manipulate sympathy. But this case touched something especially serious, because real disability is not a costume. Real people with visual impairments face real obstacles every day. They fight for access, respect, independence, and fairness. For someone to pretend to live that struggle just to collect money was more than dishonest. It was an insult to every person who actually lived it. So before Karen ever entered the courtroom, Judge Judy had already started looking deeper. The first thing she examined was the medical paperwork. Karen had submitted a letter from a doctor named Michael Stevens. According to the letter, he had diagnosed her condition and confirmed that her vision had been permanently damaged. On paper, it sounded convincing. But Judge Judy called the doctor's office. What she learned changed everything. Dr. Stevens had retired months earlier. He had not been treating patients during the time Karen claimed to be under his care. The letter did not add up. Then there was the office footage, then the social media activity, then the witness statements. By the time the hearing began, Judge Judy was no longer wondering whether Karen was telling the truth. She was waiting to see how long Karen would continue the lie. Karen began with confidence. She sat at the plaintiff's table, adjusted her sunglasses, and moved her cane slightly so it could be seen. She fumbled with her documents. She acted uncertain. At one point, she knocked over water and reacted as though the accident proved how difficult her life had become. Judge Judy watched without interruption. Then she asked Karen to explain. Karen's voice softened. She said that 6 months earlier, everything changed. She claimed she woke up and could no longer see. She described fear, darkness, confusion, and the loss of independence. She said ordinary tasks became painful struggles. She said she could not work the way she used to, and instead of helping her, Barbara pushed her out. Her story was emotional. Her timing was practiced. Her pauses were carefully placed. Some people in the courtroom seemed moved. Karen knew how to sound wounded. She knew how to appear brave. She knew how to turn suspicion into cruelty and questions into discrimination. But Judge Judy did not respond emotionally. She turned to Barbara Chen. Barbara took a breath and began. She said she had not fired Karen because of blindness. She said she fired her because Karen was lying. Barbara explained the strange incidents. The driving, the phone use, the office footage. The moments where Karen forgot to act blind when no one important was watching. Karen immediately pushed back. She said the footage was misleading. She said people were judging her unfairly. She said disabled people are constantly doubted by others who do not understand their condition. Her tone became sharper. The victim image began to slip. Judge Judy then turned to the medical letter. She asked Karen about Dr. Michael Stevens. Karen answered quickly. She said he was her doctor. She said he had diagnosed her. She said he was a respected specialist. Judge Judy remained calm. Then she revealed what she knew. She had contacted the office. Dr. Stevens was retired. He had not treated Karen. The timeline in the letter was impossible. For the first time, Karen hesitated. She tried to recover by saying there may have been another doctor with the same name. Maybe the office was confused. Maybe records had been mixed up. Judge Judy was not moved. The signature had also been checked. It appeared to be copied from the retired doctor. The letter, Judge Judy said, was not a medical record. It was a forgery. A heavy silence settled over the courtroom. Karen's face changed behind the sunglasses. She was still trying to control the situation, but the control was weakening. Judge Judy then asked her to stand and demonstrate how she used her cane. Karen rose slowly. She stretched the cane outward and began moving it in wide, awkward sweeps. It looked dramatic, but it did not look trained. It did not look like the technique used by someone who had been taught mobility skills. It looked like someone copying an idea from memory. Judge Judy noticed immediately. She told Karen that genuine cane use follows a rhythm and purpose. A person uses it to detect what is ahead before reaching the obstacle. Karen, however, was waving it as though it were a stage prop. The audience began to understand what was happening. Karen was no longer gaining sympathy. She was losing credibility with every movement. Still, she refused to stop. She said the situation was humiliating. She claimed she should not have to prove her disability. She said the court was treating her like a liar because people do not believe disabled women. But Judge Judy had not finished. She brought up Karen's online activity. Karen claimed she no longer used social media because she could not see the screen. Judge Judy then described photos from a shooting range in Nevada. The images showed Karen holding a firearm, aiming downrange, and striking targets with accuracy. The records tied the trip to her. The timing placed it after the date she claimed to have lost her sight. Karen had no clean answer. She said the photos were old. Then she said the account may have been hacked. Then she suggested someone posted them by mistake. Each explanation sounded weaker than the last. Judge Judy stated the obvious. A woman claiming total blindness had been photographed aiming and shooting with precision. At that point, Karen became angry. She said Judge Judy did not understand disability. She said blind people could still do many things. Then she made the mistake of attacking the judge herself, calling her just a television judge who thought she knew everything. The courtroom went silent. Judge Judy's expression hardened. She had allowed Karen to talk. She had allowed her to explain. She had allowed her to perform. Now the performance was over. Judge Judy told Karen there would be one final test. Then she called for a special guest. The courtroom doors opened, and a golden retriever walked in beside a handler. The dog wore a service vest and moved with calm discipline. Her name was Bailey. Bailey was trained to assist people with visual impairments in courthouse environments. She was not there for entertainment. She was there for a demonstration. The moment Bailey entered, Karen reacted. Not loudly, not obviously, but enough. Her body stiffened. Her head turned slightly. Her attention followed the dog across the room. For someone claiming complete blindness, her awareness of Bailey's position was too precise. Judge Judy saw it. She explained that Bailey would assist Karen in walking toward the bench. Karen immediately objected. She said she did not need a dog. She said her cane was enough. Judge Judy insisted. If Karen truly required disability accommodations, then accepting assistance should not have been a problem. Bailey was placed directly in Karen's path. Karen stood with her cane and began moving forward. The courtroom watched closely. She tapped the cane with the same exaggerated motions as before. She moved slowly, acting uncertain. But as she came closer to Bailey, something happened that exposed more than any document could. Karen walked around the dog. She did not touch Bailey with the cane. She did not bump into her. She did not discover her by sound or contact. She simply changed direction and avoided the dog as smoothly as anyone who could see exactly where Bailey was sitting. Judge Judy stopped her immediately. She asked how Karen knew the dog was there. Karen panicked. She said she heard breathing. She said she sensed movement. She said blind people develop heightened awareness. Judge Judy did not accept it. The courtroom could feel the trap closing. Then Judge Judy asked the bailiff for a tennis ball. The bailiff handed her a bright yellow ball. Karen stood frozen in the middle of the courtroom, still wearing her sunglasses, still holding her cane, but now visibly shaken. She seemed to understand that the next moment could destroy everything. Judge Judy held the ball and explained that a person who cannot see cannot track an object flying toward them. Karen protested again. She called the test unnecessary. She repeated that she had medical proof. Judge Judy reminded her that the proof was forged. Then, without giving Karen time to prepare, Judge Judy threw the tennis ball toward her face. The ball crossed the courtroom quickly, and Karen reacted before she could think. Her hands rose instantly. Her body aligned with the movement. Her fingers opened at the perfect moment. She caught the ball. Cleanly. The courtroom erupted in shock. Barbara Chen stared in disbelief and relief. The audience gasped. Even the bailiff seemed surprised. Karen stood there holding the tennis ball, and in that one moment, her entire case collapsed. There was no speech that could undo it, no medical term that could explain it, no accusation of discrimination that could hide it. A woman who claimed she could not see had just tracked a moving object through the air and caught it with perfect coordination. Judge Judy's voice cut through the silence. She asked Karen to explain how a completely blind woman had caught a ball thrown at her face. Karen struggled. She said it was instinct. She said anyone would raise their hands. Judge Judy rejected the excuse. Raising hands is one thing. Tracking a moving ball and catching it is another. That requires vision. It requires the eyes, the brain, and the body working together in real time. Karen's act finally broke. She removed her sunglasses. Her eyes looked normal. There was no visible sign of the condition she had described, no indication of the severe damage she claimed had ended her sight. Then came the tears. But these were not the controlled tears from earlier. These were the tears of a person who knew she had been exposed. She begged to explain. She said she had been desperate. She said she needed money. She said she had made a mistake. Judge Judy did not let that word pass. This was not a mistake. A mistake is accidental. This had required planning. Karen had obtained a cane. She had forged paperwork. She had accepted disability benefits. She had filed lawsuits. She had accused innocent employers. She had used the language of discrimination as a shield for fraud. Judge Judy then revealed the wider pattern. Barbara Chen was not the only target. Karen had filed multiple lawsuits against different employers, all built around the same story of sudden blindness. She had been collecting benefits intended for people with genuine disabilities. She had used a fraudulent, disabled parking placard. She had turned sympathy into income. The amount involved was not small. The fraud had reached tens of thousands of dollars. Judge Judy made it clear that this was no longer just a civil dispute. This was criminal forgery, perjury theft, disability fraud, insurance fraud. Karen sank into her chair, crying openly now, but the courtroom had no sympathy left for her. Judge Judy delivered her ruling. Barbara Chen won. Karen's lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, meaning she could not bring it back again. Karen was ordered to pay Barbara for legal costs and wasted time. Judge Judy also directed that the matter be referred for criminal investigation. For Barbara, the ruling was more than a legal victory. It was the restoration of her name. She had walked into court accused of cruelty toward a disabled employee. She walked out proven to be the victim of a calculated scam. After the episode aired, the moment spread rapidly online. The clip of Karen catching the tennis ball became the defining image of the entire case. People replayed it again and again. A woman claiming blindness, standing in court, catching the very object that exposed her. Bailey, the golden retriever, became a symbol of quiet justice. Disability advocates spoke out, not because Karen had been embarrassed, but because her lie harmed people who truly live with disabilities. Every fraud makes life harder for honest people who already struggle to be believed. Every fake claim gives skeptics another excuse to question real suffering. That was the deepest damage Karen caused. She did not only try to steal money, she tried to borrow pain that did not belong to her. She treated blindness like a role she could perform until the payout arrived. She used a cane as a prop, medical language as a weapon, and sympathy as a business strategy. But inside that courtroom, the lie met something stronger: evidence, patience, and a judge who refused to be manipulated. Karen believed people would be too afraid to challenge her. She believed the accusation of discrimination would silence every question. She believed the system could be fooled by dark glasses, a forged letter, and a careful voice. She was wrong, because truth does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it walks in on four legs, sometimes it sits quietly in the middle of the floor, and sometimes it comes flying across a courtroom in the shape of a yellow tennis ball. Karen caught the ball, but she could not catch the lie before it fell apart. And once it did, there was nothing left to hide behind.